Well, what are some ways you can invest into a Roth IRA if you don't qualify to do so? Today, we're going to take a look. Stay tuned for Prudent Money. Good afternoon. This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. Thanks so much for joining me today. You know I do appreciate it. So you like the idea of tax-free income when it comes to a Roth. How do you take advantage of it when you don't actually qualify for it? We're also going to be talking about Roth accounts and Trump accounts, making sure we tied up some of the loose ends from the program for the week. Also, we're going to talk about, have you developed your team that takes care of things that happen in your life? So we're going to cover all that today. As always, if you've got a question, love to get your questions. That's why I make that accessible, and the ability to get resources and whatever you need. We put time in every week to allow for that, to take calls and to help out people who listen to the program and who need help. So we're here for you. Just go to prudentmoney.com, go up to the top of the page. There's a link. Click through that link and you can get a time or you can send an email out and we'll get back to you and get you taken care of. That's off the website, www.prudentmoney.com. So we're to be talking about all these different types of accounts. One specific thing we talked about was looking at your 401k plan and determining, should all of my resources go into a 401k plan, or should maybe part of it? What is really good and effective about that 401k plan and what is not? And making sure that you've got a great balance of an overall account strategy. We talked a lot about that. You can always hear the programs on the podcast that we put out there, which is a recording of the radio show. We have it all on just really about any platform that you would like to go and listen, and that way you can listen at your convenience. But we do post those every day, and we covered quite a bit of information today. We're going to be ending tomorrow with Tony Joe, who comes in on the special Car Corner edition of Prudent Money, where Tony Joe and I talk about nothing but cars and repairs and what's the best use of your money when it comes to getting repairs done to your automobile. You know, one of the reasons we dedicate a day a week to this is because we find that is an expensive part of your life. And it's just like money. We all, not everybody knows everything about cars, what makes sense, what's a ripoff, what's overpaying, what's not going to get the job done versus a good auto strategy that's going to take care of your problems and get you up on the road and make sure, the bottom line is we got to have that vehicle to get to work and to make money, to make all that, everything else work. So that will be on tomorrow, the Special Car Corner edition, and we'll be talking about what you need to know, not so much about EVs. It just happens to be that they go along hand in hand with this, but self-driving automobiles. And a lot of the stories that are happening there and crashes and big issues that are happening with these self-driving mechanisms in cars, and what you need to know about that. What are the questions you need to ask if you're going to get into, maybe that's in your future of buying one. So that will take care of Friday. Then we'll start up another week on Monday and talk about whatever else you need to know. So all your information you can get at prudentmoney.com. Question came in, and I so appreciate these questions because they can point out, maybe I left something out, maybe I didn't address something in a blog or on a radio program. And this one talks about the Michael and Susan Dell Foundation's contribution to the Trump accounts and how all that works. We first started focusing on the Trump account itself. We talked about the $1,000 that a baby can receive to put seed money into that account, and you're eligible for that $1,000 anywhere from January 1st, 2025, all the way to December 31st, 2028. What about kids outside of that particular window? And this is where the Michael and Susan Dell contribution came in. They devoted millions of dollars towards this. They will put in a one-time contribution of $250 into that child's account. So you really have two different funding vehicles for that account. The first one is the federal government, a one-time $1,000 seed deposit for eligible children born during the 2025-2028 eligibility window. And then you have Michael and Susan Dell Foundation, one-time $250 donation deposit for eligible children who were born before January 1st, 2025. The reason they point that out is if you cannot get the $1,000 and the $225. That's not going to be possible. You can only get one or the other. But it's important to understand what the eligibility rules are when it comes to getting the $250, which I always, to me, I always refer to all that as free money. Might as well take advantage of it. First of all, you got to be age 10 or under. You have to have been born before January 1st, 2025. You live in a zip code where the median family income is $150,000 or less. This covers roughly 75 to 80% of U.S. zip codes. Have a Trump account opened and activated so the contribution can be deposited. Be among the first 25 million eligible children to receive the gift, since they committed enough funding for approximately 25 million children. And a couple of additional points that are worth noting. Obviously, we just said this, but we want to say it again. You're either eligible for one or the other, $250 or the $1,000, not both. And there's a priority that will be given to younger children if demand exceeds the available funding. So we talked about what was the big advantage. What was the big advantage to a Trump account versus a 529 plan? And this is one of the things that we talked quite a bit about. And the reason I picked a 529 plan and taking this money and utilizing it for college versus what they're wanting to utilize for, they're wanting the child to leave it invested until they're 65, 66 for retirement. That's all great and everything. But you and I know that the possibilities of a child when they get 18, because they're going to get full control of that Trump account. They're going to get full control of taking money out, closing it down, whatever they want to do, they're going to be able to do it, whether it makes sense or not. And I would suggest that risk is way too big to be taking. So the question came in. So we're talking about we'd be focusing on a college funding vehicles here versus retirement vehicles. And the 529 plan, by the way, this is on the website. We just published an article on this, and you can go check it out to see if you're someone who's a match for this. But the question is, should I do one or the other? I think you should do both. I mean, if you're getting money that's free contributions, put the contributions in there. Let the contributions grow. Fund on a monthly basis the 529 plan. And I can't. The one thing that I do like about this Trump account is that it's bringing into the present the importance of starting, at birth to save for college, because it is expensive, and you're going to need the money to be saving. I just can't express how important that is. And the thing that I like about both plans is that parents, grandparents, relatives can put money into it, and it works really, really well. This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. Thank you so much for joining me today. You know I do appreciate it. I want to make sure you get taken care of. If you got a question, we have we put some time back each week for access to that information. That I want to, if we need to have a phone call, email, whatever we need to do to get you taken care of. And I love to hear from you. I love to know what's going on. I especially love to know where we can help and where we can fill the gaps for you. So go to prudentmoney.com, go to the top of the page, there's a link, go to Ask Bob, or you can simply go info@prudentmoney.com or bob@prudentmoney.com. And it's very important to me and what we do over here with Prudent Money, and we want to make sure that you are taken care of when it really comes right down to it. Second question I got into is, it says, Dear Bob, I looked into some of the accounts that you talked about yesterday. Please talk about what a backdoor Roth IRA is and how it works. Yeah, this is a very interesting concept, and I think that to understand the Roth IRA, you have to kind of back into the bigger question. And that bigger question is, what is the differences between a Roth IRA and a traditional IRA, and which one makes the most sense? Which one clearly has a lead over the other one as this is the best place to go with your money? And so we talked about that, talked about evaluation of your 401k plan. Maybe it makes sense to have more accounts than just piling everything into a 401k plan, which may not have a match, which may not have access to a Roth 401k plan. So we took all about that. You can go listen to the podcast and get the information. But listen, hey, we're up against a break that always sneaks up on me, and we will be right back. You're listening to Prudent Money. Hello, this is Bob Brooks. Proverbs 22:3 and Proverbs 27:12 are the exact same verse word for word. I call them the stewardship verses of risk. A prudent person foresees danger and takes precautions. The simpleton goes blindly on and suffers the consequences. On the Prudent Money Radio Show, we teach about risk, how to identify it, how to figure it out, and what to do about it. We believe that to be a prudent steward, you have to be a good risk manager. Listen to the Prudent Money Radio Show on Bible School Radio 91.3. Prudent Money, home of the modern-day steward movement.
Dynamic, practical, life-changing.
There's no point in going to church and not letting the Christ who gave birth to the church on the day of Pentecost change your life.
Join us each day as Pastor Paul Shepherd applies the timeless truth of Scripture to everyday life. It's Destined for Victory on this great station.
Weekday afternoons at 3:30 here on Bible School Radio, KDKR.
This is Rob Randall, your host and teacher of the Invisible War radio program. The Invisible War is the study of God's Word on how to walk in Christ's victory in the spiritual battles we face against the powers of darkness. Join me every Sunday morning at 9 right here on KDKR and KYJC in Commerce, your station for life.
This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. We're talking about follow-up questions and information about what we talked about Monday through Wednesday, and talked about today's Thursday. You talked about yesterday. We talked about how to look at alternatives to a 401k plan if the 401k plan just doesn't completely take care of the job, and we talked about the Roth IRA versus the traditional IRA, because those are a couple of the alternatives that are available to you and what makes sense to be in one over the other. It really breaks down to this, to a taxation standpoint. With the traditional IRA, you put money into it on an annual basis. If you qualify and you're eligible, you can take that money that you put into the IRA and deduct it off of your taxes. And that's a pre-tax, what they call a pre-tax contribution. and you continue to do that for the rest of your life, and you accumulate a good sum of money. That's the traditional IRA. When you take money out of that traditional IRA, you pay full taxes on that money. Now let's transition over to the Roth IRA. You put money into it. You are not going to get a tax break for the money you put into, which is not that big of a deal, I don't think, because it's pretty small anyway. That money grows tax deferred, just like its counterpart, the traditional IRA. But here's the big difference. When you get to retirement age, that money, and hopefully you've done a great job of saving and growing that money will come out of the Roth IRA 100% tax-free. Do you see why I would probably prefer the Roth IRA over the traditional IRA? I think it makes the most sense. There's a lot of other really cool things you can do with it, but that's the main thing, the main takeaway that I want you to see here, and why that could be a very big part of your overall investment retirement plan. Now, keep in mind something, that with a traditional IRA, there's no question you can put the full amount each year into it, whether you're doing a 401k, whatever you're doing outside, which typically prevents you from making a contribution. The difference between the two, the Roth and the traditional IRA, is that the Roth, if you make over a certain income, which I think is $250,000, married filing jointly, then you cannot put money into a Roth, period, based on that income. There's a phase out. 250 is the max you can make. Above that, you can't get any benefit from the Roth IRA. Now hear this out, because this is what's really important to know, is that with a traditional IRA, that money comes out with a traditional IRA, let me back up. With a traditional IRA, you can put money up until the maximum contribution, even if you're maxing out your 401k plan. The question is not, am I eligible to put money into it? The question is, am I eligible to take a tax break because I put money into it? And that's where the contribution becomes either a pre-tax contribution, meaning that you got a tax benefit, or it turns into an after-tax contribution because you didn't get a tax benefit. Very important distinction between the two. Once again, the Roth, you could make so much money that you can't even contribute into it no matter what. I think $250,000 is the number. With the traditional IRA, you can always contribute into it, no question. The question is, am I eligible to take the contribution as a tax deduction? That's the big question. And so you got to balance that out. So what is this whole idea of a backdoor Roth IRA? So let's say that you are making too much money to put money into a Roth. So what is this backdoor Roth contribution? Well, the way the rules are set up, you can take money that's in a traditional IRA and you can do what's called a conversion into a Roth IRA, move the money from the IRA, traditional IRA, to the Roth IRA and let it grow. Pretty slick deal. What prevents people from doing that is the fact is the money that you take out of the IRA is going to be taxed. And so you have to pay a lot of tax, a lot in taxes potentially. But now your money's in the Roth, it's growing at the Roth benefits, which is a good thing. So with an after-tax conversion through a traditional IRA, you just put that money in there and you didn't get a tax break for it, so it's automatic, once again, an after-tax contribution. And that after-tax contribution can be converted through the back door to a Roth. The cool thing is you're probably not going to owe any taxes on it. because it was after-tax money and you've already paid taxes. Now, you can even do so with a 401k plan that has after-tax dollars in it. This is pretty cool. And there's obviously eligibility that you got to check into. You can get your financial advisor to make sure that you're clear and free to do this. You're putting money that's after tax into a Roth account through a conversion, a lump sum conversion, and you can do that with really no out-of-pocket expenses. That's pretty cool. Now, you could owe a very little bit of tax because they had a gain on it, but I can't imagine it being a lot unless you hit the jackpot or something to that extension, to that degree. So, I think that the bigger question, not is a Roth IRA, should I do a backdoor Roth IRA? I think the bigger question is, regarding retirement, just kind of wrap this up, is my 401k plan being optimized as far as pre-tax and after-tax money? And are there any contribution benefits that can be gained using other types of accounts? This is something that many people don't consider. This is something that financial advisors, I don't think, get enough into and talking about and looking at and analyzing for their clients to see, does the right strategy for me mean a bunch of different accounts? Remember, you're putting all your money into this one vehicle. Does it warrant that responsibility of taking all that money and making it right for you down the road for retirement? You got to ask that question. Instead of just kind of folding to, this is what traditional financial planning says. You need to put your money in a 401k plan. You need to save. And I've always said it depends. Depends if it's a good 401k, if it has effective characteristics about it that can really maximize your dollar long term. That's what you really want to look into. One last question today before we wrap up. Dear Bob, you always talk about having a financial planner to talk with and have involved in all of your financial matters. Talk about what that looks like. Well, let's ask this question by starting out with a bigger question that needs to be asked. And it takes me back to a great NFL football player back in the early 2000s. His name is Rocket Ishmael, and Rocket, of course, is a nickname. The guy was just pure speed, and he did something very different, being a big name in the NFL, being someone that has incredible financial opportunities, and they come his way. He put a team together. And they call that, in fact, I don't think I've come across any other professional athlete that's done this, but I think it makes total sense. He called it Team Rocket. And Team Rocket was I'm sure, made up of CPAs, attorneys, financial advisors, you name it. But they're all there to take care of Rocket Ishmael's future from an investment standpoint. I've always thought, why aren't we all taking a Team Rocket approach where we have, and I always think about this especially having Tony Joe on Fridays, about not having, having a mechanic that you can trust. So unbelievably invaluable, because if you're like me, I don't know anything about it. I only know what Tony Joe teaches on Fridays, and I gain from that. But I think it's important to have somebody that's overlooking, it's kind of the quarterback, the financial advisor that's overlooking everything you're doing, and y'all build a relationship and put together a team approach to making sure that you're making the right decisions. And the only way, once again, that you can make the right decisions is ask the right questions. So, for instance, you have someone to go to that you can say, Bob, Mr. Financial Advisor, tell me, I'm thinking a lot about account strategy. Do I have the right accounts put together for retirement? And what should I be considering? What should I be looking at? Are we utilizing every dollar I'm putting back? It's a big question. And as I said yesterday, well, your financial advisor may need to bring somebody in that may not be, there's a lot of tax questions in there that come alive. So the advisor may bring somebody else into that question to answer that question. I think it's also important that you have somebody who knows your situation, that you feel comfortable relaying the trust to, which is a big deal, and also someone that has got your best interest at heart. So yeah, I think it's important if you're working with somebody you're not happy with, if you're not working with somebody, just inquire at that Ask Bob, and we'll tell you how all that works, because I think it definitely is an important part of the whole process. Hey, this is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. If you got a question for me, you know where to go, prudentmoney.com. Send it in. We'll get you taken care of. But for now, we are all out of time. Till we do meet again next time, keep the faith and have a great rest of the day.
That's all the time we have for today. Questions or comments for Bob, or to find out more great information like what you've just heard, visit www.prudentmoney.com. Be sure to join Bob Brooks again for the next edition of Prudent Money.